What's up, everybody? My name is Nick Giffen, and I'm here to give you 5 tips to set your DraftKings lineups for the Daytona 500 and give you the best shot at winning the $1 million first place prize on DraftKings. Yes, that's right. DraftKings is having its first ever Millionaire Maker for NASCAR DFS. So let's jump right into the tips. Tip number 1, we want to avoid the 2 drivers starting on the front row. That's starting first and second. Only one time since 2005 has a front row starter been in the optimal DFS lineup. That's a span of 17 Daytona 500s, so only once has that happened in 17 races. This year's front row starters in particular are not super awesome at super speedway races. Those are the Hendrick Motorsports teammates of Kyle Larson and Alex Bowman. Starting with Kyle Larson, he will lead the field to the green flag from the pole position. He is $10,200 on DraftKings, and he is the reigning NASCAR Cup Series champion. So, he's going to draw a lot of attention in NASCAR DFS circles. Maybe draw some exposure, be in a lot of lineups. Well, that's going to be good if we fade him. Alex Bowman starts right next to him in second place. Bowman is $8,600 on DraftKings. In fact, this is the 5th year in a row that Alex Bowman has started on the front row. But once again, I said these two aren't great super speedway racers. They have combined for 0 wins in 46 career races between them on super speedways while in quality equipment. In those 46 races, they've only led a combined total of 96 laps. So that's just over 2 laps per race led combined between the two of them. So they're not going to get you a bunch of points for leading laps. They're probably going to fall backward through the field and get you negative points in the place differential column. So avoid the front row starters here in the Daytona 500. That leads me into tip number 2, which is tails along with tip number 1 very well. Not only do we want to avoid the front row drivers, but we want to use drivers inside the top 10 very sparingly. So any driver that starts inside the top 10, you want to use them sparingly. Since 2005, never has any optimal lineup had more than 2 of these drivers starting inside the top 10. So never been 3, 4, 5, or all 6 drivers starting inside the top 10. Only 2, 1, or 0. In fact, even just 2 drivers inside the top 10 has only happened twice in the last 17 races. So, that's a pretty high chance that we're going to have either 0 or 1 driver starting inside the top 10 in the optimal lineup. So split the vast majority of your lineups between these 2 strategies where you have either 0 or 1 driver starting inside the top 10. It's okay to sprinkle in 2, but I'd keep it mostly to 0 and 1 driver starting inside the top 10. Kind of tagging along here with tip number 1 and tip number 2 is tip number 3. We want to load up on drivers starting in the back. So if we're not using drivers in the front, we're going to be using drivers starting in the back. And the reason is because place differential is king on DraftKings. As corny as that was, it is very important. If a driver starts 13th and finishes 10th, that means he moved up 20 spots from the start to the end of the race. And that's going to get you 20 place differential points to go along with your driver's finishing position points as well. Optimal lineups on DraftKings in the Daytona 500 have averaged 4.3 of these drivers starting 26th or worse. So we definitely want to get a bunch of them. Never has there been fewer than 2, and 15 of 17 Daytona 500 since 2005 have had at least 3 of these drivers starting 26th or worse. So load up on drivers in the back. Tip number 4, we want to embrace risk. If you're going to win $1 million, you got to take some chances. You have to finish first out of nearly 107,000 entrants into this contest. So the best way to do that is leveraging driver exposures. If a driver is projected to be very highly owned, like we can expect for Denny Hamlin starting 30th in this Daytona 500, he is a 3-time Daytona 500 champion, we can project him for nearly 60% exposure in lineups. So my simulations actually have him under 50% of the time ending up in the optimal lineup. So what do you want to do with Denny Hamlin in your lineups? Well, if you're multi-entering, not only do you want to play him less than 50%, but to get a little extra leverage on the field, since they will be overweight on Denny Hamlin, we probably want to go something like 45 or even 40% exposure to Denny Hamlin, because if something were to happen where he doesn't end up in the optimal lineup, and probability says he's not going to end up in the optimal lineup, we'll get extra leverage there, and we'll have many more bullets to win the $1 million, where other people, 60% of people, are going to be out of the running there to win the $1 million. So make sure we embrace that risk. But finally, tip number 5, have fun. This is the granddaddy race of them all, the Great American Race, the Daytona 500. It's going to be history. History is always made in this race, but you're not going to have fun if you're going to feel really upset about losing money on DraftKings if you can't afford to. So make sure you stay within your means. The Daytona 500 is a very, very high variance race. That's because these drivers are always in a pack, and the big crash of 10, 15 plus drivers could happen at any time and ruin your day. So while it is still a very profitable venture to play DraftKings NASCAR, especially on super speedways, it is still a high variance deal, especially for the Daytona 500. So, to enjoy having fun, make sure you stay within your means, and of course, just enjoy the race. We have a brand new car. The series is about to kick off for 36 races. It's going to be a fun time. So if you found these tips useful, make sure to give the video a like. And if you have any other tips that I haven't covered, make sure to leave them in the comments below. Also in the comments, let me know who you think is going to win the 2022 Daytona 500. Good luck, everybody, and enjoy the race.